All right.
DeShazo.
Here we go. Who we got? We got Terry. Good to see you in Westchester yesterday. Ryan Holmes. Brock, Rock Chalk.
Love it. Yeah. Love to hear who's on. It'd just be fun to see where you're calling from. What city are you from?
Yeah, if you're in, just throw in the chat where you're at. Coach, Hail State. Hope you're doing well. See if I can find the chat. There it is.
So Kevin, go ahead.
I'll say for those joining, University of Illinois Chicago, awesome, Mississippi State. One thing you might note when you're in the chat, your default is all panelists, which means it's only going to be seen by Jeremie and myself, which is okay. When you're in the chat, if you do all panelists and attendees, that means that everyone can see it. So just a little housekeeping. And we'll officially get rolling, obviously, in about 6 minutes. We're just hanging out for a bit.
Kevin, yeah, let's talk about the most important things is haircuts. So I've got to get this haircut solved. So anyone else on the line have an issue with haircuts like I am?
I say you just let it go, personally.
I mean, Kelly's like, it gives you more hair, but I feel like I'm getting a Mike Gundy mullet started down here.
You're a man. You're over 40. You're good. You can do what you need to do with your hair. Yeah,
it's good. And Ryan, now ladies, I'm not sure what you do with hair. You know, my wife and my daughters are having a problem with nails because they're nail salon lady, and they're trying to figure out. They saw a COVID solution. One lady put the hand through a mail slot on the front door, and the lady did the nails for them. I don't know. Where do you do your nails?
I hope you're asking other people, not me. No, we saw so my wife's, one of her college roommates, she posted a video yesterday that she's just like kind of given up on her nails, and the joke was she got a bag of do you remember bugles?
Oh yeah, sure.
Right.
Oh,
and like
nice.
put those on her fingernails and painted those. Like you gotta do what you gotta do.
That's so funny.
Yeah, it's a weird season for that. I'm Megan trim my hair a little bit.
Well, it looks better than it used to. Oh wait, I'm joking.
No, I had a college professor. His thing was how to be a millionaire, and all these different ways to save money. And he went like 2 years without getting a haircut. He's like, and added up, however much he saved.
Was he a millionaire?
Pretty insane. I don't know if he was or not. He told us he was, but I think he was a liar. So, but he was an ethics professor. So who knows?
It was an excuse to not have to. It was laziness.
That's right. That's all it was. It was laziness packaged as thriftiness.
All right, so we got a few who are responding. Who else is here? Love to know where you're calling in from. But your just put your city.
Chris, good to see you. Akron, Ohio, nice.
Akron, Ohio, yes.
Not a state I've been to, oddly enough.
Ohio, I love Ohio. I've been to Brian. I've been to Canton a lot. Yeah, love that area for sure.
Pittsburgh, Florida,
Pittsburgh
Columbia,
with
Missouri.
Exclamation point. Is
Fired
that
up Pittsburgh?
Pittsburgh, Kansas, Mackenzie?
Got Iowa.
Pittsburgh, PA. 2 exclamation. Yeah, 3. I see. Oh yeah,
Canton.
Brian. There's
got a lot of people in Canton, right?
There. Mm-hmm.
Is that Susie?
Susie Lance.
Yeah.
Al D'Angelo, Jason Lance. Some really good people there.
City of Champions, Pittsburgh, indeed. I actually do like Steelers. Big Steelers fan.
Yeah, there's Lubbock, Texas. We got Buddy Holly in the house, Brian, and Brock, Little Lawrence, Kansas.
Seattle. Also not a place that I've been.
Really?
Yeah, oddly enough.
Huh. Yeah, no, Seattle's a great. I mean, I think about, well, you and I, we speak a lot and get to go to a lot of places. So
I was talking to some friends at University of Washington, because I mentioned that, it goes around on Twitter every now and then. What states have you not been to? And Washington was one of them.
I've never been to Lynchburg, Virginia, though. I can tell you that. I've heard good things about it. You've been there, haven't you?
Absolutely, and that's great friend Ian McCaw, the AD there at Liberty. Beautiful place, beautiful people. Legitimately one of my favorite, not just college towns, but towns. It's beautiful. Love that part of the world. I've been with their team twice in the last week, 3 times in the last 3 weeks, in fact. What else we got?
Now, Ginger, I do have a question for Ginger. Do you use the cowbells for the women's golf? Like whenever they do really good, or do you just do the cowbell or not? That's a question I have for you. So if you could maybe respond back to us, Ginger, let us know.
The great women's golf coach there at Mississippi State. Awesome person.
Well, we ring
imaginary
one. Yes,
that's right.
That's great. Well, again, if those of you just joining, if you just put in your where you're calling from, that'd be great. What location, school, so on and so forth, and then we'll get started in a minute. Right, Kev?
Yep, got about another minute or two. We'll let people keep rolling in. And again, for those who have just joined, as you're throwing questions in the chat, Chris, good to see you. Ken, great to see you. Miss the Hobart William Smith area, also just a beautiful, underrated place. As you're throwing stuff into the chat, just know that, hey, Rach, the default is to go to the panelist. So your default chat is just going to go to Jeremie and I. If you select all panelists and attendees, then it's open to everyone. So no right or wrong way. Just giving you a heads up that if you wonder why nobody's responding, it's because it may just be Jeremie and I seeing it. San Antonio, great spot. Need to get back there. Milwaukee, actually have not been to Milwaukee, Adam. Need to fix that. I've flown into there and driven out of there, but I've never actually been.
I got stuck in Milwaukee a few times. I actually love Milwaukee, but that's another story.
No, I did. I did stay there once. I actually got stuck there. That's true. So I don't count that as being there. I was just in a hotel at like 2 o'clock in the morning. David from Sioux Falls, also a great place. If you go at the right time of year, I made the mistake of going there the wrong time of the year. That's all right. Went there the right time of the year too, so we fixed it. St. Paul, we got a lot of great people in St. Paul. Some friends up that direction.
Yep.
Brock, hope you're well. Upper Iowa Peacocks. First, I thought that said pancakes. Maybe I'm just ready for lunch. Andrew, LSU, love Baton Rouge. Spent some time there right around Christmas. Let's see who else we got. All right, you want to get rolling in 1 minute? Does that feel good?
That's great. Yeah, fired up.
All right, friends, and
Anyone
we
else
are.
Join us? There we go.
Shelby, home from school. Gotcha.
Home from school.
So we are recording this, by the way. So if you want to access it later, if you've got to bail in the middle of it, all good. We will make this available for you later on, so don't worry. There will be some time for some Q&A and chat, of course. But we are going to get rolling. And before we do that, I just want to give a little intro. I'm Kevin DeShazo. Some of you guys know me. I've run Fieldhouse Media for about a decade, doing social media training for college athletes, coaches, administrators. That led into starting something called Culture Wins, doing leader development, culture building in the sports world. Do stuff with businesses, but mostly in the sports world. And the other gentleman joining me is my friend and colleague and partner, Jeremie Kubicek. So Jeremie is the CEO of Giant. And so anytime, some of you guys know this, some of you don't. Some of you guys already know Jeremie, but if you see Giant or Culture Wins, we are one and the same. Giant they do leader development, culture building, people intelligence in the business world and the nonprofit world. So we do stuff with Google, we do stuff with the Air Force and Chick-fil-A and Delta and Pfizer, down to dentist office and churches and screen printing companies. And we've taken all of that content and kind of repurposed it and reframed it for the sports world as Culture Wins. And so he's the CEO of Giant. We partner together to run Culture Wins. And so that's who we are. Jeremie, how is life in your world these days? What are you feeling? What are you experiencing? What are you seeing from teams?
You know, what's so fun is, first and foremost, thanks for letting me be here and to hang with you all. Really fired up to get into the sports world today. My purpose is at an all-time high because I feel like we were made for this, to be able to encourage, to help leaders, to give them tools. It's interesting. I'm finding that a lot of leaders are either doing this or they're doing this or this. A lot of people, and I just got off a call with 16 CEOs, and these CEOs were mid-sized businesses, and they basically were going, half of them, well, 3/4 of them were going, you know what, we've gotten so much more done, we're more productive, we're really owning the remote, and then about a quarter of them really are feeling there weren't a lot in the middle. It'd be interesting to see what everyone here on this call, where you fit in that. So I feel alive and I feel excited to be able to serve people and help people, and I think we will today. So there you go.
I love it. So we're going to talk about a concept called the 5 years. And again, some of you are familiar with it. Some of you have implemented it into your organization, your teams, your families. But this is a book, Jeremie, that you wrote, what, probably four years ago? Is that right?
That's right. Mm-hmm. Yep.
And it's just
That's
going. Right. So you wrote it 4 years ago, and a different time, right? It was a different day. It was a different world. What was kind of the mindset, and where were you at when you wrote this book and got this concept?
Yeah, so I was living in London, just moved from Atlanta. We just sold John Maxwell's assets and Catalyst and LeaderCast, all these big brands that I built, and moved to London with my family. And all of a sudden, I'm driving a left-handed stick shift. So if you've ever been to England, most cars are manual, and it's on the other side of the road. So all of a sudden, picture yourself driving and shifting with your left hand. And, I was just lucky enough that they didn't like switch the clutch and the gas, or that would be like a death trap. So what happened was I was there with my, business partner, Steve Cockram, and I started observing and watching his life and then my life and going, man, we do things differently. And so I took a metaphor of driving and shifting gears and created an emotional intelligent concept of how do you be present and productive when you're forced to be at home, or in this case, when there was never enough time. So what's happening now is the world is being forced into COVID-19. We're being forced into our house. Most of us, some of us are having, still at the offices, but a lot of people we're working with, our kids are forced home from school. Our spouse may or may not have already been at home or been forced to come home. So the dynamics are changing. And so I think that's why this is such a relevant concept.
I love it. And just personal experience, this concept, this tool has been a game changer, truthfully, in my life, with my family. My wife understands it. We use it. My kids get it. So it shapes how we interact with our family. And it feels like a perfect time to kind of not reintroduce this, but reframe it for teams and families and organizations in this current situation. Because it is, we're stuck trying to figure out how do we get work done and be productive, because there's still, hopefully for most of us, there's still work to be done. There's a need to still maintain connection and relationship with our team, but also with our family, with your friends, and a time to make sure that you're refilling and refueling yourself, right? Because you got to be at your best as you go in the midst of it. So I'm really excited to dig into this with you guys today. And Jeremie, I'll let you run with it.
Yeah, so used to, and this is how it used to be like. We used to, do you guys remember when we could actually eat with other people? Now, but the idea was we're with people, but we were still distracted by these devices. And I know who you are. Kevin and I both know how distracted most of you are, because we're the same way. And so that's what it used to be like. And then we went on to the next slide, where we talk about the idea of we used to be able to be in coffee shops a month ago. Maybe we'll get there again, but there's probably going to be a new norm. And then we used to even shake hands, and to think, literally, I wonder if we'll do this. Like, will the new world, will we be fist bumps or like Corona elbows? I don't know. But like something's going to change. And so this is our new reality. And you go, okay, you've got kids at home, everyone's trying to figure it out. It looks like, just the next slide of just people being in a different environment, of having to work out of bedrooms and work next to a spouse. I know for me and my wife, I have 3 college students who are all home with me, and we're doing home college. We didn't think we'd be doing home college at this point in time. So you just see these pictures, and these pictures are just the reality. You can just keep moving it, Kevin, and until we get to, but just the realities of homework and realities of trying to deal with things you didn't think of, screen time, and what does it look like? I know that just so many new norms of things that are happening now that are different. So what we want to do is just address this issue of, like, right now, how do you get things done in the remote world with you, your spouse, your team? How do you connect with people in your life, kids, spouse, if you're married, any others, and your team? And how do you not go crazy in the process? So that's what we want to talk to you about. And we want to dive into the idea. Why don't you just explain what being present means and what being productive means? I think we get it, but why don't you explain that, Kev?
Well, it's this idea of there's a time to be with people, right? There's a time to listen, a time to engage, a time to understand and interact. But we also have to get work done. And as I'm, working with ADs and with coaches, like, hey, we've got things to get done. I still have to win games. I still have to raise money. I still have to make decisions. And that's all true. But you also feel the tension of, but what about our people, right? I've got to make sure we're connected. We can't just drag them along. We can't ignore the realities of what's happening. And some of that is also just realizing everyone's in a different place. Like, we're all in the same storm, but we may be in a different boat in the midst of the storm, right? Some of you may be home alone. Some of you may be home with a spouse who's also working and you're trying to figure that out. Some of you may have a spouse that's still having to go to work, which creates some different stress. Some of you may be home with kids. Some of you may just be alone away from family, right? If you're a younger professional, you may be working at a school or an organization and your family's across the country and you're stuck in an 800 square foot apartment alone. And so there's different tensions in all this, and it can really, it's really easy to get out of balance, get out of whack. And so we've got to figure out, how do we be present with people while also being focused and productive with the work?
So that's where this metaphor comes in. And we're going to teach you this language, as I mentioned, this gear shift and shifting to go. Here's the big idea. You need every gear every day. So I'm going to teach you the gears. Some of you already know them, but we're going to go even deeper into them. And then we'll go through the context of them. So here are the 5 gears. Let me teach you in record time. And then we're going to quickly do a quick test, even in a webinar format. That'll be interesting, but we'll see if we can get it done. 5th gear is when you're in focus mode. It's when you're in the zone. It's like, if I have to say, Matt, hey, Matt, there's 3 Matts to get your attention. That's when you know you were in focus mode. Some of you have no idea what I'm talking about because you've never been in that zone before. You've never been in that gear. Some of you love that gear. You want to be in it all day long, where you can just close the door and hunker down and get things done. A project, paper, whatever that looks like. For me, it's writing books. That's what that happens. That's 5th gear. 4th gear is task mode. So it's multitask. It's emails, phone calls. It's working through interruptions. It's your traditional to-do list. And what's happening right now is that you have 4th gear at work. And this is a big aha. But because a lot of people are at home, 4th gear home task and 4th gear work task are overlapping. And so during the day, and when you're not used to going, I need to take the trash out. I don't ever need to take the trash, or I need, my kids need something, or all these to-do lists are kind of piling up on top of each other, and it's creating a lot of tension. And that's taking place. So that's 4th gear. 3rd gear is social mode. It's chit chat. It's small talk. It's being present with people, but it's like, hey, Kevin, what did you do this weekend? I was just joking around, and I was turning Kevin on to marble races on YouTube. And it was during lunch, and we were just shooting the breeze and talking. And all of a sudden, if you go to YouTube and see sand marble races, you start betting on which marble is going to win. I mean, that's just like what's happening to us in coronavirus. It's silly, it's funny, but it's just chit chat. And, you know, a lot of that has gone away because traditional social is going to hang out at a restaurant or a bar, or seeing people, going for dinners. So social has changed. We'll get through all those in a minute. Connect mode is second gear. So it's going deeper. It's having a conversation with your mom or dad, or a date night, or time with your kids, or a good friend over FaceTime now, or a phone call. It's just, we're going deeper with someone than we normally would. And then recharge is first gear. The idea of how do you recharge? Introverts get drained by activity. That's what introversion is. Introverts might need to plug in by reading a book, watching something, taking a bath, going on a walk, exercise. Extroverts need to recharge by activity. So people or events or experiences. So extroverts are having a harder time in this corona crisis than introverts are, for sure. And so it's a different dynamic. So the importance are this: you need every gear every day. Now, reverse is learning to apologize, being responsive. My bad, my fault. That's humility. When you put all those together, you've got a well-rounded person. The reality is that most people get stuck in one or two gears. So what I would typically do is give you a test and hold up my hand and go, what gear is this? Obviously, you can see fifth gear, fourth gear, third gear. Well, yeah, but what gear is it? Social, connect, recharge, task, focus. That's a sign language, and that is designed to help you have the right common language with your team or your family. And then there's all types of things you can do to become more effective as a leader because of it. Any color on any of that, Kevin?
Yeah, we're obviously going to go deeper into it, but even that is enough to implement into your team, into your family. So part of this is take what you learn and teach it to your team, right? You don't have to be an expert in the 5 gears to teach them, oh, these are the 5 gears, here's what they mean. And then it becomes this play calling system, like Jeremie said. I'll never forget one time, this is probably 4 or 5 years ago now, before the book was out, but the concept was already there. And we had an event in Atlanta, and Jeremie was already there. I flew in, got a rental car, got to the hotel, and I walked in, and I was excited about something business related. It's like, Jeremie, we just got this happened, and he's sitting there with a glass of wine talking to someone. He's like, whoa, third gear. Right. Because what I was going to do is undermine my influence in that moment. I needed to be just hanging out. It was a social gathering, not a work gathering. Even though we were all there, work related, it was a social time. It was a time to be present, not productive. And so he could have easily made that awkward, but it was just a, hey man, third. Yep. And that's just a sign language to me to shift into the right gear. And so that's how simple it can be. Again, we do everything. We design it to where an educated 13-year-old could get it. My 11-year-old gets this, right? It's that simple. It's that practical for you to implement immediately into your team.
So as you're thinking through what your gears are, you need to think about the 5 circles of influence and really how they play out, because all of us have certain circles that we're in. So we've got self, family, team, organization, community. Now, it needs to go in this order. A lot of leaders, where they'll screw up is they spend all their time focused on team and organization. They don't spend time on themselves, and they don't spend time on family. And so what happens in both cases, they get to the point where they undermine themselves, and if they get real stressed, they can implode. So intentional means I'm going to be intentional with myself. So if you think about the gears, you think about first gear. What does recharge look like right now? So Tracy's just mentioned in the chat, she's got no time because she's got toddlers at home, no Mother's Day out, or family that can help. And she's an introvert struggling. I'm like, yeah, absolutely. That's a dynamic for a lot of people. So there's creativity that has to go into it. And there's certain things that are out of your control. Totally get that. But the reality is, what does self look like? I talked to someone recently, and she's an executive, and she had 2 toddlers. And I asked her how things were going, and she was completely stressed. And basically, we helped figure out that she had put her office in the middle of her house. And so we created a new office in a closet that had a window. So just the intentionality, she goes, things are going much better because my kids can't see me. And so, well, that can work for short bursts of fourth or fifth gear work, but you're going to have to work differently now. And so being intentional with your team is completely different when they're remote. Learning how to do organization intentionally remotely is even more difficult. Community, the same. So what we're going to give you ideas and thoughts of how you can do that. But those are just some examples of things that we believe, and intentionality is the key for that.
And that's the real phrase in that. And this tool, this phrase kind of flipped my world about 4 years ago, this idea of being intentional versus being accidental. Because for most of our days, most of our life, most of our relationships, we are accidental, right? We hope that this thing works out. We hope this person understands this. We hope that this happens. Instead of saying, if I want these outcomes, what actions does that actually require of me? How do I not hope? How do I take action? And that means taking control and taking ownership and being intentional, like I said, in every circle of influence, starting with yourself. But when you flip that switch from accidental to intentional, things start to really change, because we're not going to get better on accident, right? Things aren't going to get better on accident. Relationships aren't going to get better on accident. I'm not going to be more productive on accident. I've got to be intentional with all of that.
So what we want to do is have you rank your gear order. And what we're looking for is, which one are you in the most? And then which one is the lowest? So you might even want to go back, Kevin, to the 5 gears. So to look at this and go, which one do you have the most difficulty with? So let me just give you an example. And Kevin and I both have the same wiring as far as personality: connector, creative, pioneer. And so from the 5 voices language. So for me, I go, I'm always in 4th gear. I like 3rd gear, social. And so given the choice, I would probably choose 3rd over 2nd, but I do like to go into 2nd gear, but only after I've had a little bit of 3rd. I have a really hard time getting in 5th gear, but I have a really, really hard time learning how to recharge. I told my wife last night, I was like, I think I'm done. She's like, what does that mean? I'm like, I haven't done a good job recharging. We've been moving into a house. I've been responsible for all these things, and I've given myself away to everybody else. I've not done a good job of recharging myself. So it's a constant issue, because I get recharged by lots of things. I get recharged by a conversation, but I'm having a hard time still. So that's my lowest one, 1st. 5th would be my 2nd. I'm always in 4th, but I prefer to be in 3rd and then maybe 2nd. Kevin, what's your order? Is that similar?
It's the same. I've learned, so 5th gear is actually the hardest for me. And we're similar. Like usually 5th gear is going to be on an airplane. If I don't get Wi-Fi, then I can knock some things out. We don't travel anymore. And so 5th gear has almost gone away completely. It feels like most days are stuck in 4th gear right now. 3rd gear is looking like, I've been telling people our team does a 30-minute Zoom call once a week. It's a 3rd gear Zoom call where we just hang out. We're doing game nights with our family on either Zoom, or there's an app called House Party where you just play games. They're built into the app. We did that with siblings. So that's 3rd gear is happening a little bit, not as much as it usually does. 2nd gear, really a struggle right now, just because it's, again, usually it's a date night or a one-on-one with someone, and it's just tough to go do that. 1st gear, I've gotten a lot better over the past 3 years. Again, once I learned the system, 1st gear became a big priority for me, and leader health became a priority. And so that one's become a lot, I don't want to say it's easy, but I've gone from probably a 4 to a 6 or 7 at that, right, out of 10. So I spend most days though in 4th gear.
So if you're listening, just type into the chat window, which is your hardest gear to be in? Is it 1st? Is it 2nd? And we usually find that 1st and 5th typically are more introvert gears, and 3rd and 4th are typically more extrovert gears. A lot of people can get into 2nd, but just be interested. And if it is 1st or 5th, then are you an extrovert or not? That's just an interesting thought. It doesn't mean that you are. It just means it's something to consider. And if your 3rd gear is your hardest, does that mean that are you an introvert? So some people it is, some people it's not. So what that does for you is that gives you an opportunity to go, if you want to increase your influence overnight, begin working on the gear that is the most difficult for you. So to think, if it is first gear recharge, there's a conversation to be had with Kevin or with someone that you trust as a confidant, that you can really go deeper and try to figure that out. And so if it's fifth gear, then learning what focus really looks like. Most people don't have a hard time with fourth gear. They may not like it. And some people are addicted to it. My wife is, I call her fourth gear Kelly, because she's a guardian and she's in it all the time. Third gear is social. So you learn how to practice. One of the tips that we always give people, for those of you that third gear is a difficulty, is learning to be interested before being interesting. So usually ask a couple of questions like, hey, Ginger, so, hey, where are you from? Where's your hometown? And we set that dialogue. Then I go, oh, no kidding. I'm looking for commonality. Then she might ask me what my hometown is. And I am from Shawnee, Oklahoma. Brad Pitt. I grew up around Brad Pitt and his family. So there's some interesting conversations that get started, right? And so those are just different ways that you can actually get better at certain gears. But it takes a lot of work. And we'll show you in a minute kind of the platform and how you can actually learn from it. Or the 5 Gears book is always something for a field guide if you're a book reader. So those are just some examples. Anything else to add to that before we move on?
Well, one thing to think about, and we may get into this in a little bit, but thinking about which gear is easiest for you and which gear is most difficult for you. We always say leaders define culture. So based on the gear that you spend the most time in, how is that shaping the culture around you, both with your team? Like if you're always stuck in 5th gear, what does that say about your culture? What does that say about the relationships in your culture? What issues is that creating if you're always in 4th gear, right? So thinking about where you tend to operate and what that does to your influence. What message are you telling your team? Because you want to say relationships matter and connections matter and communication matters, but you're always stuck in 5th gear, isolating yourself from other people. And so you're saying one thing that you believe, but you may not be living it out. So thinking about where you spend your time and the impact that's actually having on culture.
So what happens then is, if you think about this to go, what do you tend to do when you get into stress mode? So what is moderate or extreme stress, and where do you tend to go? Now, this is an interesting one because a lot of people are experiencing a lot of stress right now. Obviously with schools and colleges decisions, control what you can control. Well, you might not be able to control anything. Are we going to have a fall team? Are we going to have play games? If you have fall teams, if you have spring teams, you may have had championships canceled or games canceled. Then you're dealing with students, you're dealing with questions of coaches, you're dealing with admin. Or if you're an admin, you're trying to help answer questions that you don't have answers to. All of this can create stress. So where do you tend to go? So what we find, I talked to a guy yesterday and he said, you know what, I'm crashing right now. He goes, and I go, you realize crashing is not recharge. He goes, yeah, I get that. He goes, it happens to me every quarter. I go hard, 5th gear, 4th, 5th, 4th, 5th, 4th, 5th, and then I crash down to 1st. That is not a lifestyle. That's not worth emulating. You can't lead that effectively. And I used to live there. I used to do that same thing. But for me, under stress, I go to 5th gear and I get uber task focus, and I start creating content and I start creating solutions as fast as I possibly can to solve the problem. So what I'd like for you to do, how about you real quick, Kevin, where do you go under stress?
Similar, right? Because we're wired the same. I go into 5th gear to try to feel some win, right? To feel some version of progress. And then ultimately though, I switch into unhealthy recharge. It's just crash. And this is me, especially in college, right? I was so stressed out that I just played video games all day. That's my crash mode. And again, that phrase, crashing is not resting, crashing is crashing. And our culture, I remember we were with the Thunder a couple of years ago, talking to someone on their team and working through the 5 years. And this girl said she was exhausted because she had gone on an impromptu trip to Dallas or something on like Saturday. We were there, I think, on a Tuesday. And then Sunday, she just crashed all day, just stayed in bed all day. And our point was, you never feel rested or better after crashing, right? Whether you binge watch season 3 of Ozark or play video games till 2 in the morning, like you don't feel better. And we're not saying don't play video games if you're young or whatever, or watch Netflix. Like those are okay. It's the stress behaviors of those when 2 episodes turn into 6 episodes. So this girl it was a Tuesday. She was exhausted because she'd put off all of her stuff she needed to get done. And it made actually her reality worse.
So this is self-awareness. This is being aware of your tendencies. Okay. So a lot of people, they wake up first thing in the morning and they check these devices. They see what kind of emails they have. And the emails, if you check email first thing in the morning, you're letting someone else's agenda from the night before dictate your morning. You can get really frustrated. You're not ready yet. So that means get ready, do some recharge. But then what happens, and you need to be aware of your tendencies. So some people, if you're stressed, usually it's either 5th, 3rd, or 1st where people go. Sometimes people go into hyper 4th gear, multitasking, and habitually. Very few people get so stressed out they go, I think I'm going to call grandma. I mean, some people do, and I'm going to connect with someone. It's usually something different. So if you want to play in the game in the chat, where do you tend to go in stress? Do you go to 5th gear? You go to 1st gear? You go to a hard partying 3rd gear? What is your tendency to do? So just write in the chat box, and it'd be interesting to see what people say. So Adam goes to 5th. Okay. In stress, I go to 2nd. Interesting, Jeremy. Yeah. 5th for sure. Stress mode, go to 3rd, 1st. So you may do those very things that we talked about. So it's important for you to know. So we can keep going, Kevin. The next thought is then mastering your settings. So here's what we want you to do: is we want you to start thinking about your normal settings. So all of us have the same life. Like we all wake up, we all have some early morning routine, hopefully hygiene in there. We have, before quarantine, we have drive time. We'll get to that in a minute. Work, break, work, lunch, work, break, work, drive time, dinner, family time, personal time, late night routine, sleep. All of us have that same life. Maybe we cut out 1 or 2 things. So what the reality is to go, what's the appropriate gear? Now, the first thing you need to do is think about it for yourself. I'm in 4 or 5, 4 or 5, 4 or 5, 4 or 5, a little bit of 3, back to 4 or 5, 4 or 5, and I go to bed. Well, every gear every day should be your motto. You need every gear every day, like a car needs every gear. So what does it look like for you? So if you go on to the next slide, I think it's getting into we call it quarantined. If you've been quarantined, that means you've been kind of mandated to go home. So you wake up, maybe eat, handle kids if you have them, or start working, work, break, work, lunch, work, break, something like that. Handle kids, home issues, dinner, family, personal time. It's all discombobulated. So if you take your world and the expectation of your team, and if you're married or have, a significant other, their routine, so their routine is mashing up with your routine, and there could be some friction. Then you add kids on top of that. Now, if they're school kids, they have their own routine. I mean, I've got 3, kids, but they're in home college, and it's really bad because the college professors don't know how to do technology, and they weren't used to it, and they're just sending stuff. A lot of busy work. It's, some cases it's good, cases it's not so good. So you've got those dynamics at play. And then if you've got young kids that you don't have a Mother's Day out, or maybe they were with someone and now you're having to manage them, do your work, and manage their emotional intelligence or lack of with their spouse, there is drama. So what we're suggesting is to have the conversation, talk about it, teach it with your spouse. What gears should you be in during the day, and how do you put them in? What does it look like? Again, this includes drive time here, but you get the point. What gears should you be in, and how do you have the conversation? And then how do you teach the sign language to your team? This is the key. Teaching sign language keeps a common objective language that everyone can use. So that's what we're ultimately trying to get you to do, is to start learning how to use this.
And then the beauty of it is that when your team knows it and you communicate it, there's no more drama, because it used to be, you know, I'm busy. We have an open door policy, which we love to say we have an open door policy, which is really just an invitation to interrupt you. And then we complain that we're not getting any work done. Well, if we just shut the door so we can get work done, now they think we're not accessible, right? Now they think we're being a jerk, or maybe we're in a bad mood. And it could just be, no, I just need to get work done. So if you can have that language, and so we've seen people, they'll just put a 5 up on their door, right? So when people walk by, it's like 5th gear, got it. That's a reminder to them of the reality of the situation. It could be if you've got shared calendars, you've got 5th gear on your calendar, that's a reminder to them to not bother you during that time. They'll wait until it's over, and they'll come solve problems and have the conversation. But communicating that is how you eliminate the drama.
And I think we have a calendar example next, don't we? So if
Yep.
you look at this to go, this is an example. If you actually put this on your calendar and teach your team, you go, hey, we're going to do 5th gear between 12 and 2:30. What if you had that for your team, and you taught your team every Tuesday and Thursday between X and Y, it's going to be 5th gear time. Or if you put it on your calendar and someone sees your calendar, they know not to bother you because they know what 5th gear means. And you don't put 4th gear on because all of it is usually 4th gear, but you could put like a 1st gear, I'm going to go on a run on Wednesday, Thursday, or Wednesday, Friday at lunch. Great, go on a run. Or 3rd gear moments, like Kevin was saying. We do this a lot with our teams. Remote sanity check-in, 30 minutes, an hour, have lunch with your team doing 3rd gear. And all we're going to talk about is marble races, binge watching, funny things that happened. Maybe there is a 2nd gear connection that you put in place outside of work. But by using the language, it starts creating routines and a rhythm. And you can teach this. So that's how you would leverage the 5 gears with your team. And then I want to show you, go for it. So then if you think about then going, what does it look like in a normal course? So let's say you have a 3 o'clock meeting. I use triggers and markers as a time. In fact, I used to do it. Now it's just a habit. If I have a 3 o'clock meeting at 2:58, I used to set an alarm, and I would think about, okay, I'm meeting with Chris. What are we going to talk about, Chris? Okay, got it. I got my 4th gear connection. I've already shifted gears, but I start the meeting in 3rd gear. Chris walks in. Chris, what's happening, man? How are you? How was your weekend? 3rd gear. Most of us are afraid to ask that question because people could go too long and you won't be productive. What I started realizing, I was so productive that I'd be on my computer and be like, hey, Chris, yeah, come on in. What do you got? Oh, hang on a second. Let me finish this email. Hang on. Okay, yeah, okay, go. Yeah, what do you got? I was putting pressure on 4th gear, so I wasn't developing core relationships and good communication. I was creating scurry. And what I was doing was I was uber productive, but I was under present. If I'm over productive and under present, I won't have influence, and ultimately I won't be as productive. So I started doing triggers as a way for me to get connected to my people. And about a month in, my assistant, Beth, at the time, I go, Beth, how's it going? Because she knew what I was doing. She started laughing and she goes, they think you have cancer. I'm like, what? I'm like, they think you're either leaving or you have cancer. And I'm like, no. I just decided to get connected and be present with people. And the way you do that is with eye contact. You look people in the eye, and then you move from 3rd gear. And then I naturally would shift about 2-3 minutes. I go, oh, that's awesome. Okay, what are we working on today? What are we working on today was a shift into 4th gear. If I had an hour with Chris, I spent 3, 4, 5 minutes in 3rd gear building relationship and communication, which is called relational trust. Then we shifted over to 4th gear. All of a sudden, my people felt like I was for them. They were more engaged, not less engaged. So we were more productive in that process.
And I think a big piece of that is, and we've been having this conversation with teams lately, is because we don't have the natural 3rd gear that we used to have, right? Just stopping in someone's office and chatting for a bit, going to a team lunch or a team dinner. We're spread out, we're distant, we're all remote, and everything is about the business. Everything is about progress. Everything is about moving forward, which is necessary, right? We have to keep things running. Things are becoming unintentionally transactional. right? We're skipping that third gear piece. And we have a tool we look at all the time called the components of a high performing team, this flywheel of performance. And at the core of that are the communication and relationships. And we're missing that unintentionally during this time. And so even via Zoom, like we would say every meeting, it's like Jeremie was saying, should start with third gear. Start by connecting, start by the relational piece. And that doesn't mean you're going around everyone sharing their deep feelings, right? We're not holding hands, singing kumbaya. It's just doing a check-in. Hey, how we doing? We doing all right? Is everyone okay? Does anybody need anything? All right, awesome. Now let's get down to business. And so making sure that we're not skipping past. Yes, things are more difficult than they were, especially as from a relational standpoint, but we still have to be intentional and not let that slip through the cracks.
So it's a great way to analyze yourself and to go, okay, how are you doing on your fifth gear? What we found is the Zoom calls have been all fourth gear. People aren't putting in fifth gear on their calendar, so they're not feeling like they're getting as much done. So if you put fifth gear on for 2 hours and you go, there's no Zoom meetings then, I'm focused, I'm getting something done, and everyone sees it and knows what you're talking about, they'll be cool with that. Great, you're focused. Then fourth gear is obviously what you're doing all the time. Third gear, then learn to put it in, but learn to put it in for your team, but also your family. Because the interesting thing about family is you're at home all the time, and how do you just all of a sudden go, okay, now it's third gear time? Well, you have to get creative. You go, hey guys, let's go outside and do a food fight. If you have young kids, let's do, let's really get focused in connect mode by doing date night in other rooms of the house. So there's other creative ways that you can actually use the gears and maximize your time.
I think that's the piece is, right, again, perspective and just taking ownership. And it's really easy to talk about what we can't do and let that drive what we are doing. Right, like I said, we can't do third gear like we used to. Well, our family, we're going on walks consistently. If the weather's nice, we're going on family walks every night. We're going out to state parks, right? Because they're empty. We can go hiking and climbing and hanging out and creating memories. We're going out and just playing catch. Like my boys, this should be baseball season for them. Dad, can we go work on pitching? Absolutely. And so it's finding that time, creating new rhythms based on this situation. It's not what it used to be, but that doesn't mean we can't make progress in the midst of it. That doesn't mean we can't be intentional. And so this is a conversation. If you are married or have a roommate, have this conversation with the person you're living with. Right. So think about if you have a spouse who's working from home as well. And so it's talking with them, teaching them the language. It's really simple. And telling them, hey, I need fifth gear tomorrow from 9 to 11. No kids, no dog, no interruptions. I need fifth gear from 9 to 11. That lets them know what to expect, right? You're communicating expectations, but then asking them, when do you need fifth gear? Well, I need it from 1 to 3. Awesome. I can take the kids. I can handle whatever. And so it's understanding each other's day in the midst of all of this. Again, that doesn't mean you're only working during those 2 hours or whatever that window is. That's just your fifth gear time, because fourth gear is going to kind of flow in and out of all of it. And I talked to someone yesterday, a client of ours, who they've realized the need to disconnect, right? They're like, we have work to do, but not a ton of work. They work in the football world. There's not games. Because like, I don't need to be, we feel like we have to be tied to our phone or our computer. He was like, that's not true. And so he's putting his phone, his computer down from 5 to 8, hanging out with his family. And he'll go at 8 and he'll check his phone. Any texts? Nope. Any emails? Nope. Great. Then he'll put his phone back and go hang out with his wife after the kids go to bed. And so he's ending the day in second gear and first gear. And so it's finding a rhythm in the midst of this, because even from being quarantined and having to work and live and lead from home, we still need all of these gears. And I would say especially first gear during this time, because everything takes more effort. Communication takes more effort. Relationship takes more effort. Execution takes more effort. Leadership carries an energy burden anyway, and that's okay. That's not a negative. That's just reality. And so you have to be at your best. Right? You can't pour from an empty cup. And so you have to take time each day. I'm not a routine person, but I love the morning routine. So I would challenge you to figure out, what can you do in the morning? It can be 10 minutes, right? This doesn't mean wake up at 4 o'clock and go sit on a mountaintop and meditate for 2 hours while you're doing yoga and then run a marathon, right? Wake up whenever you wake up.
That's just what I do.
Yeah, that's Jeremie.
Just what I do.
That's his routine. But it's figuring out what is your routine. For me, it's about 15 to 20 minutes. I wake up, I read for a bit. Some days I journal, some days I don't. I make coffee. I sit with my boys. They watch TV. I just kind of hang out with them. And then I've got an identity statement that I read to kind of remind myself who I am, what I'm about, to kind of build myself up and stir up energy before I go into the day, because I know the day is going to take a lot out of me, because I'm not just working, right? I'm a husband and I'm a dad and I'm a friend. And so make that first gear a priority. But the more you can have this conversation with your spouse and your team, the better this gets, because you start to set expectations, and that gets people into a routine, which gives us more energy and it eliminates a lot of drama.
Why don't you share, Kevin, how people can use this? Because I think people are asking questions about what happens there.
What was the question? Sorry, I can't see the chat.
No, just why don't you share with them how people can use this? Go into the link and show them that.
So go to the platform.
Yeah, there you go.
So some of you guys know, go ahead, Jeremy.
No, go for it.
So some of you guys know we built out a platform, and so this is kind of what it is. It's Netflix meets Hulu meets Apple TV meets Disney Plus meets Peloton, right? So it's content that you can consume at any time, but we also do live trainings, just like these. We do live trainings. It's a platform called Giant. If you go here, you get 30 days for free. It's cheaper than Netflix. It's $8.99 a month, but it's free for the first 30 days. So I'm going to pull this up for you to show you guys what this actually looks like, because this is a way for you to actually use it with your team. So you don't have to feel the burden. Again, five gears is not rocket science in terms of teaching it, but you can release yourself from that burden, show it to your team. All right, here we go. So you log into the Giant platform, and this is just our platform to develop leaders, to develop people, to make you more intelligent as it relates to personality, self-awareness, communication, execution. As you come in and you look at media, here's a keynote on the 5 gears you can watch. Here's a masterclass that we created. This is an individual product, probably what, 2-3 years ago, I think, when the book came out. It just goes real deep into 5 gears. And there are ways teaching you how to teach it to your organization, to your family, to your team. But it's just a way you can watch these videos with your team. And that way it starts to create that language. One of our clients, they watch a video from the platform. So they've got their whole organization on the platform. It's $4.99 a month when you do it per person inside of a team, $8.99 a month as an individual. And they just show a video at every staff meeting, because what you're doing is getting that language kind of in the water system. And so you can watch a video on the 5 gears. There's a toolkit you can look at that teaches it. So not the whole course, right? But there's a video you can watch on the 5 gears. It would teach it to your team, and then you just have a conversation. Guys, how do we get better with this? These are all of our tools, right, that you can go watch. So it's a conversation. You can watch it with your team and say, now how do we implement this? What does 5th gear look like in our organization in this season and in the normal season? Go ahead.
And again, it's just giant.tv/culturewins. And so that's easy. Kevin, can I share something with them real quick?
Yep, let me stop mine.
Yeah, so let me share you this with you guys. So those who can still hang on and check this out, I want you to show you how it even works at home and how practical it is. So this is an example of 6 and 8-year-olds who get it and how you can teach it to them. Let's see if you can just see this.
Dave and Rebecca Raymond.
Can you hear that, Kevin?
And, all right, guys, ready for this? We're going to do some 5 gears. Tell me what this gear is. Yes, David.
Focus mode. You got it.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, that's a focus mode. Good job. All right, Rebecca, tell me what this gear is. What would that look like in school? What part of school?
Recess. So my point is it works whether with your home, you can teach kids this. So by teaching the sign language, it simply means that you can call plays. Hey guys, let's go, 3rd gear. Instead of like, put up your phone, put up your phone, put up your phone, put up your phone, stop video games, stop video games. You're not nagging, you're calling your kids up. Hey guys, you know it's 3rd gear, let's go. You know what 3rd gear time is, come on. And then you create an activity that gives you language to be more intentional. With your team, come on, guys, let's go back to fourth gear. Come on. Instead of nagging them, let's go get back to work, dadgummit. Let's go fourth gear. Or I need fifth gear time. So calling the plays and using the sign language, it's one tool. This is one of 60 tools that we have on the platform. If you love it and you want to use it, it's so inexpensive to build. If you want your team to go through it, talk to Kevin, and he'll give you more specifics and how you can actually implement this for the entire organization or your entire team at a very, very low cost.
Well, and the beauty is, we've got organizations who they've marked areas in their office, right? This is a fifth gear area. This is a second gear area. Again, because it's just a common language. I know there are a lot of coaches on this call. Like, we've implemented this with actual teams, not just business teams, right? Not just communications or marketing, but golf teams and softball teams, to figure out, okay, third gear, locker room, right? We're hanging out before practice, before a game. We're connecting. What does fifth gear look like? What does second gear look like for our team? I remember we had a softball team, and this girl was the most talented player on the team. And she was so mad the coach wouldn't name her a captain. And she realized, because she was always in fifth gear, just trying to execute and win, she wasn't spending enough time in third gear building relationships with her teammates. She cared about them, but she appeared to care more about winning than the people. And so it was a huge aha for her. It's like, oh my gosh, he shouldn't make me a captain, right? It doesn't matter how talented I am. I've not built the right influence with the team. So she had to make third gear a priority. And so it's figuring out, how are you potentially undermining your influence or creating unhealthy realities in your culture based on your gear order and how you tend to operate. So watch the videos on the platform. Again, I'm more than happy to get you set up. It's free for the first 30 days when you use this link. After that, it's $8.99 a month. Again, for the whole team, it's $4.99 a month per person. It just puts the language inside the whole system. If you want to reach out to Jeremie and I, this is our information. That text, if you text Culture Wins to that number, you'll join my daily email. I just send a daily email to encourage leaders, mostly in the sports world. And I've got a new book coming out that'll be super helpful for you guys. You'll get all that information if you sign up for those daily emails. I'm not selling you things. It's just a way to encourage you and keep you informed. We've got a few minutes left. And I want to give two stories, and you guys ask questions, right? We can jam for the next 5-10 minutes and answer any questions and have some Q&A. But I'm gonna give you two stories. I can't share names, but one, I was flying back from the University of Iowa, and I was on a flight from Iowa to Chicago, short flight, and I've got my laptop out working on 5-gear stuff. And this guy next to me said, what do you do? I said, I work with teams and leaders. And he said, okay, but what do you do? And so I try to help leaders get better and get healthier and create culture. And he's like, oh, great. Well, what's that? So what's a system on work-life balance, on being present and productive? And it was a 30-minute flight, and I barely had time to even get my laptop out. So I taught it to this guy in about 5 minutes. And I look over, and he's crying. And I don't have these things happen to me very often. I'm like, oh gosh, I'm so sorry. What did I say? Like, what did I do? And he goes, I'm flying home right now to get a divorce from my wife. He had been building a company, and so focused on building a company, and for the right reasons. Like, he was building it to take care of his family, like pure intent, but he just lost his way, like many of us do, and was always stuck in 5th gear. And his wife's like, why don't you pay attention to your family? And he just thought she was nagging him. What she was saying is, we need some 2nd and 3rd gear time, right? We need you to be in the right gear at the right time with your family. He just thought she was nagging because he was insecure and defensive. And he was like, she's right. He's like, I think this just solved it. And so we talked about it a little bit, and I don't know the ending of the story. So there's not, I'm just choosing to believe there's a good ending, but I walked, he got off the plane before me. And so I'm behind him, and I hear, like, he picks up his wife, and it's late. And he's like, honey, put some coffee on. We're going to be okay. I think I figured it out. It's all my fault. I have a way for us to make it. And it was just one of those aha moments, because they both cared about each other. It was wrong gear, wrong time influence, right?
That's right.
Good intent. We get lost. I had another story. This is an AD, an athletic director at a D1 school, who always felt guilty about working, right? Because it's a tough culture in college sports, right? We're always on. And he just said, this gave me freedom to be in the right gear at the right time. He goes, this saved my marriage because of it. He's like, I made we call it athletics as a lifestyle. He goes, I did that in a negative way with my family. He's like, this gave me a framework to get things done, but also really take care of my family. He goes, this saved my family, my marriage, just a language, right? So that's not us taking credit for anything. It's just trying to give people a lens to see themselves, to see the way that they operate as a framework to get better in a really simple and practical, but incredibly powerful way. All right, Ken, what do you got? Small shop college SID, struggled to stop working. I hit the wall and start to struggle with burnout. What recommendations do you have for downshifting? One, I would try to create a schedule as much as you can. And I know college sports scheduling is tough, but we can also use that as an excuse, right? So as best as you can, try to create some rhythm, figure out what's really necessary, because we don't do a good job of delegating. We take on all the work and then we say that we're burnt out. In small shop, it's even more difficult, right? There's only so many people you can delegate, but you've got to at some point make a decision. What's more important? Does this work really, really matter? Or do I need to go for a walk or go be with my family? And so having a plan before that season gets there, and Ken, we can chat one-on-one. I obviously know you well, but creating a plan so that you can have a delegation, like it's huge, and take the time now to start training people, right? Because we say, oh, I can just do it better and faster myself, which is true, but that's an excuse to never delegate. And the team feels like they're never getting developed, and you feel like they're never growing, and you feel like you're always burnt out because you're doing all the work. And so to train them, they're going to feel developed and empowered and trusted. You're getting things off your plate. You can operate at a higher level, and you're healthier, and it's not a burden to them, right? They actually want to take on some of these things. So figuring out a plan, we can chat more about it. But creating a plan now instead of waiting till that crossover season happens and you're just throwing your hands up because it's too late, right? You don't make the plan when the waves are coming over the side of the boat. You make the plan before you go out to sea. So being intentional with that and creating the plan with them, right? Even the plan isn't your burden. Plan with them.
It's good. So all of this is designed to help you. We're just giving you we're riffing, giving you some of our thoughts. We spend all of our days helping leaders solve problems like this. Most of them are around personality. People don't know themselves very well. And so I think the next webinar we're going to do is around the 5 voices. So Kevin will send out details and tell you more, but we really want to serve people to go, this is the time to know yourself really well, to know your spouse really well, your kids, know your team really well, to help them, to talk about stress, to talk about predictive behavior, to start changing patterns and actions, to know your tendencies as it relates to the gears and other things that you do. And then to actually have an action plan. We can give you things that you can use and it really works. You just have to implement it. You got to actually want to do this. So thanks for the time today. And Kevin, thanks for letting me be with you today.
Absolutely. Appreciate you guys. Thanks for showing up. I'll keep you updated on the 5 Voices webinar, which again is our personality communication system. So I'll keep you posted on that. We'll get you this link so you can watch it at a later time as well, rewatch it. So be well, and we'll see you guys soon.
Thanks much. Bye-bye.